So just before this podcast starts, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Firstly, through to my technological problems, we do not have a full episode this time, but I really wanted to post what we had from Steve, because it's so fascinating to hear all about his epic rides throughout a number of years for the highest annual mileage, and all sorts of bits and bobs about riding tandems, Paris, how he dealt with sleep apnea, nutrition, and I'll talk a little bit about those at the end. So I firstly wanted to explain that, yes, unfortunately, we did lose a large portion of this recording, but I wanted to kind of give everybody a chance to hear what he'd got to say, and say thank you very much for Steve for his patience with our issues. And secondly, as well, that this is recorded outside as well, so there's some extra noises in there too. So I hope you still enjoy what we've got. And yeah, I'll give you a bit more chat at the end. Hi there, my name's Laura. I'm the back half of Stella Tandem, and this is Stoked to be here. This is a podcast designed to talk to people from the world of endurance and long distance cycling in preparation for our trip, cycling around the world in 2022, and hopefully breaking the record at the time on tandem bicycle. I'm joined today by my front half, Stevie.
Hello.
And also by the amazing Steve Abraham, who has the highest annual mileage for his age group for cycling throughout a whole year of 72,388 miles, which is a pretty epic feat. So he definitely knows a lot about endurance and cycling. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
How are you doing?
All right.
Thanks for joining us today. We might get a bit of background noise today because we're actually at a rather nice cafe, sat in the sunshine, having all ridden here, which I think is quite appropriate. So how did it all start, essentially? How did you get into the crazy world of long distance cycling?
It's probably when I was about 8 years old and saw the London Marathon. I wanted to saw the London Marathon. Well, that looks good. I like the idea of people running as far as possible, which I thought a marathon was. I thought, no one runs further than a marathon, so I want to do that when I'm older. And I also wanted to ride motorbikes for some reason. And I sort of like running and fantasy stuff. Then my dad started taking me out on my bike, and I quite liked doing that, but I didn't really think much of it. And then I started going out with mates at school, and one day he said, you got a bike? And I said, yeah, I've got a bike, should we go for a ride? And we started riding and that, and we started riding around the village, and one day we sort of followed this old bridle way up to this green gate. And the other side of this green gate was a road. It was a country lane, it's not a big road. Because of all the sort of fantasy stuff I was into at the time, Lord of the Rings and Indiana Jones, all that sort of thing. I had to find out where this road went. I was really excited about finding this, sort of open the gates of Narnia to this new kingdom. So, where does the road go? Let's go down this road. I sort of egging my old mate on, and he said, oh no, we're getting a travel and all that. So I sort of persuaded him to go down this road, and he sort of convinced me to go back because he didn't want to get sold off and get grounded for all the summer. So I sort of went back there on my own, and I sort of got addicted to it. I thought, oh, where does this road go? I found another road. Where does this road go? Yeah, I sort of got into my dad's drawers and found his maps. My dad rode quite a bit as well. I remember when I was really young, he went off on this long ride, and I was upset because I thought he wouldn't let me go with him. He did about 160 miles, and I was about 8 on this sort of toy bike, I said, Dad, can I go? Well, why not? And he got back, and I was he really enjoyed it. He said, oh, brilliant that ride, all these big hills he went down. I thought, let me come, I thought it was like we went down the common or something, But I sort of had all that in the back of my head as well, probably.
Yeah.
Then it just sort of spiralled out of control, I always wanted to do the most, I was, even running at school, I never wanted to be the fastest. I wanted to see how far you could go. I was always into distance and not speed. And then all of that put together, thing about distance and finding new places and that. It sort of rolled into one, you know, the sports side of it as well, because I was into Bruce Lee and Rocky films and that sort of thing as well. So I didn't like sports at school, but I like the idea of there was something in them films and that, you know, about pushing your limits and
going further.
that got me hooked as well. So I was trying to do all this stuff at the same time. So all these things pulling me into it.
And then you started riding the longer distances pretty young, didn't you? Like the Audax rides and things like that. I think you kind of joined that world from a young age.
I always wanted to do as much as I could. So what's the most anyone can do? I was always asking that question. What's the most anyone can do? I thought, you know, I got to about 12 or 13 and I thought, well, it's got to be 100 miles a day. So let's do 100 miles a day. I did 100 miles a day. And I found out that someone had done 200 miles a day. Well, I've got to do 200 miles a day now. So I joined the CTC and all this sort of stuff, and I got into the club runs and that. But I wanted to do long rides, you know. As soon as I joined the CTC, the reliability rides, 150 miles in 12 hours. I don't want to do that straight away, you know. So I think that was the following year. But so I did the 100 in 9 hours or something, because I knew I weren't sure I was fast enough. So I've only got to. I want to do the distance, I'm not worried about speed. So I did the 100-mile reliability ride. And then, you know, I started going mad on the CTC club runs. I started leading them, and they got more and more extreme until the sort of climax was going around the outside of the M25, where I was the only one that turned up. Then another step further, I tried to do 300 a day with someone else in the club, but I ended up in a right mess that day. I think I was ill, and I've been at work on the market as well the day before, setting off at 2 in the morning when you're not feeling very well, and I ended up in Chesham, about 20 miles from home, and I couldn't go any further. I sort of sat outside the road about 2 in the morning and cold and drizzle. I said to my friend, just leave me here. You know, I was 16 at the time. We ended up sort of sleeping on this stranger's sofa for the night, and I sort of crawled home the next day, and that was the last straw for the CTC. Someone told me about this mad bunch called Audax. Said, oh, you'd really like this lot. And of course I joined Audax. Oh, what's the most anyone can do in Audax? And I saw what people did. I thought, well, you know, they're mad. No one can do that and work full time. You know, I had a full time job then. So I thought, what's the most I can do then? So I did the SR series and ended up doing as much as this other mad bloke who I thought couldn't do it while working full time. While I was working full time, and it turned out that you can.
Can fit a lot in. And then, so how did that transpire to the highest annual mileage? So that's sort of the most number of miles recorded ridden in a year, and you go through the Ultra Cycling Association for that, don't you, to get it verified and everything?
Yeah, you do now, yeah.
Yeah.
When I was 15 on one of these CTC club runs, someone was talking about this man in the 1930s who averaged about 200 odd miles a day. You know, and, you know, I was always remembered it. They're all saying, "No, he's daft. He didn't want to do a thing like that." The whole table sort of agreeing that it's a really silly thing to do, and I was just keeping quiet. I thought, I really like the idea of that.
And that was averaging 200 miles a day for a whole year.
Yeah, I really got it, but because they were all saying what a stupid idea it was, and now it can't be good for your health, you know, all this sort of thing. You're going to kill yourself trying to do something like that. And I was just sitting there quiet, thinking, "Cool, I really want to have a go at that. What's that like, you know?" But so I sort of had that in the back of my mind while I was doing all this action.
It took quite a number of years to really give it a crack then.
Yeah, even then when I was sort of breaking all these Audax records, now I got into Audax and really struggled. I did an SR series, I really struggled. The first one I did, I really didn't find it easy. You know, I still think it's the best thing I've ever done. Cycling is the first SR series. You know,
wow.
That's given me the biggest high of anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
you know, PBs and the 10s, best 24-hour, you know, even the world record and that. The first SR was the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, I've still got all my badges, so yeah. You're really proud, aren't you?
You know, if I did one now, I'd be wondering what's wrong if I struggle, you know.
Yeah.
But first one I really struggled, and I did it, and because I thought
Yeah.
that was the thing, you know, and I thought all these other people that are doing 200 points in a year, I thought, oh, they can't be working full time like I am.
Yeah.
But then I ended up going for over 200 points while I was working full time like they were.
You certainly raised the bar.
At the back of my head, I was always thinking about this bloke in the 1930s that I heard about, who did 200 a day for a year. I thought, blimey, could I actually could I ever even think about doing it, you know? And
how did you eventually get that off the ground then? Because you got some sponsorship help and a lot of people working with you, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Well, I wasn't sure I'd ever get the chance, you know, because I really wasn't sure I could do it, you know. Even when you're doing all this Audaxing on the weekend, you know, you spend the rest of the week after you wrecked. You know, I was doing 500-mile weekends, but for the rest of the week I'm in a real wreck. So I was still, you know, can I do 200 a day for a year? You know, it's still, you know, it still doesn't bear thinking about. But I thought I still want to try, you know. And I sort of made noises about doing that and RAM and all this other stuff, and sort of Dave Barter, who researched Tommy Godwin, he's written the book about the year record. You know, he's probably researched it more than anyone. He sort of got in touch with me and said, you know, let's have a chat about it. And I was thinking, oh good, this bloke's going to do everything for me and wave a magic wand and I'll go and be out to ride, you know. And I was wrong. What he made me realise was that if you want to make it happen, you've got to get off your arse and do it. So I sort of think, all right, because I was a bit lucky and a bit clever. I paid my mortgage off before I was 40.
Wow.
So I thought, well, that's going to really drop my, you know, living costs down. So that's going to make it a lot easier. I thought, well, let's give it a go. So I thought, I've got to try doing it. I sort of thought about Chris Hopkinson as well, and I remember he started ultra racing and doing RAM and that, and I was always a little bit jealous. Well, how come he's got himself doing RAM and that? And because what I thought about Dave Barter, I thought, oh, it's because he got off his arse and did it, and he tried, and he pulled it off. And I thought, why don't I give it a go? What have I got to lose? So I did, and it worked.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then were you kind of training for it the first time around? Did you have time to do that? Or did you just kind of quit work and just set off and have a good bash?
I wanted to train for it. I did a lot. It was between sort of 2012 and 2014 I was really seriously thinking of doing it. And Dave Barter was saying, when are you going to get started, you know, when are you going to do it? And I was saying, oh, not this year, I'm not ready yet, you know. But what I was doing, I was looking at heart rate monitors and that, see what heart rate to ride at and testing the equipment out. I mean, I did one winter, I think it's 2012 winter, I tried to average 200 mile a day over the festive 500 week, or, you know, we had the Christmas break off of work. So I thought, let's smash myself to pieces and see what I can do in winter when I'm not fit.
Yeah.
And I average about 180 a day. That's including days off because I got so wrecked. And it's every day rained heavily. But it's a really good test for the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sure that I wanted to use Hope hubs and, you know, Hope bottom brackets, because, you know, if you can get through that, problem was wheels, because I wore a pair of rims out in that week. It was raining so much, you know, doing, you know, over 1,000 miles in a week of torrential rain. Think how much you're braking.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I can't rely on rim brakes for a year. If I get a week like that, I'm going to need a set of wheels every month, you know. That's silly. So I really had a problem deciding what to do with wheels until I met Mike Lane of Audax, who got the Audax points record. He broke my record. Yeah. And he said, oh, you want to use these tubeless things with disc brakes? You know, I've done 30,000. He's disabled, so he can't mend a puncture. So he basically road tested tubeless for me. And thought, well, good enough for him doing that, and he can't mend a puncture.
Yeah.
Now I've got some wheels that I can use faster wheels in the winter that aren't going to get me, less time stopped for punching. When I was doing these test rides, I used Marathon Plus tyres, and I was getting no punches, but I was slow. I got behind, so I put some faster tyres on, and I was about 2 hours faster every day, but I was getting puncher every 100 miles. That was the other problem that I was trying to get around. So that sort of solved the rim problem by using disc brakes. It solved the puncher problem, and I could use faster tyres, which would give me more miles. So that was that. But I couldn't do any actual training because I just didn't have time. It's the first time I'd ever gone the sponsored route. I'd always, paid me Audax entry fees and done it because it's quite cheap.
Yeah.
And I'd never done a thing like this before. Never gone for sponsors or anything, and I had no idea how much work it would take. So I thought I'd sort of give up work and everything would be easy. I can do a 6-hour training ride every day. Nope. Woke up in the morning, just worked flat out until I was falling asleep, go to bed, wake up the next morning, work flat out until you fall asleep, and I was doing that for 2 months solid.
Yeah.
I lost 5 kilos in the 2 months leading up to the start because I wasn't eating, so I was just so busy.
Incredible.
I was eating about once a day, and I was literally going flat out all day long, absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, and it's all the admin, isn't it? It's all the bits and bobs.
I really underestimated that.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd done anything like that, and you think how big a year record project is.
Yeah.
It wasn't just setting myself up; we had to set the rules up as well.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah.
Because Guinness wouldn't recognise it. The only people I could think of that would do it were the UMCA then, was the World Ultra Cycling Association now. They sort of regulate RAM and all these other big races and records. And because on a normal UMCA record, you've got to have a follow car all the time. So we had to. That's why we had the live tracker. And there's always rules that we couldn't follow, so we had to work all that out. And there's a lot of really silly rules that are coming up that just wouldn't work. And Kurt's Vogel nearly pulled out because the stuff it just wouldn't work. So it was basically me doing all of the negotiating with the rules and trying to set myself up at the same time. When it was all new to me as well, and even with about 5 people helping me, I was still,
full-time job and then some.
Well, it's probably 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
The amount of hours I was going, literally 14, 15 a day. It was a relief to start.
Yeah.
I thought, I can relax now. What I do now is ride the bike.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you started, was it the 1st of January 2015?
Yeah, the first attempt,
Yeah, you started out. And then was it just pure relief at that point? Were you just relieved to get going? Or
it was.
Were you nervous at all? Or?
No, I wasn't nervous because I'd done the test ride.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I know I can do. I had a schedule for about 180 a day in January. And I knew that I could do 180 when I'm unfit because of what I'd done in 2012 in bad weather over worse terrain, without all the support and that. And I thought, well, I know I can do that, and I know I can get fitter from doing that.
So you can keep your mileage at that through the winter.
Yeah, if I can stay on schedule, it should all work out. It didn't, but
yeah, there was a bit of a hiccup, wasn't there, quite early on?
Well, it was all going to plan basically. Even though I wasn't as fit as I'd like to have been, the plan was to get fit as during the year anyway, because that's what it looked like Tommy Godwin did. Yeah. It was a record I was trying to beat. I thought that's what he did. It worked really well. So that seems to be the way to do it. Yeah, yeah. From what we know, there's so little known about Tommy Godwin as well, which made it a lot harder. It's like looking at someone's power data now, and you've got all these analysts.
It's all on Strava now, isn't it?
Yeah, you can analyse everything now, but for the year record, there's nothing to analyse. It's just numbers that are
just written down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And then kind of touching it, but horribly, you were knocked off within kind of the first 3 or 4 months, weren't you?
March,
so it's March.
I think. It was March. I know it was March because it took us a month to get a recumbent. You broke your ankle, didn't you? So that put you out of action for a fair bit of time until about a month. Yeah. We was going to get a trike originally because we know someone in Audax, Steve Fulton. I think we were going to get a trike off of him.
Yeah.
But the trouble is I can't ride a trike. Which for anyone who don't ride a bike sounds really daft, but
It's a different skill, really, isn't it? Yeah.
The trouble is when you get, because you're used to steering the bike where it leans, when you get on a trike and you get an adverse, you get a camera, the bike starts tilting you, the trike starts tilting you one way, you tend to steer that way.
Yeah.
So you end up sort of steering yourself off the road without realising what you're doing.
Oh goodness.
And you think, what's up with this thing? Why is it sending me here? I'm trying. You can't work out why you can't go in a straight line on it. Oh, I've tried riding the trike. I gave up. But a recumbent, I know you just sit on it and...
Yeah.
And that was to help your recovery of your ankle?
Yeah, that was part of the plan. It's A, keep the miles going, and you can still see if it still looks like it might be doable, and B, help the ankle recover.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, unfortunately, that's all we got from Steve before my phone gave it the ghost halfway through, and we've tried to recover the audio and failed. So we've missed out, unfortunately, about hearing about how he continued throughout that year until he realised he just couldn't kind of make up the mileage to break the record set in 1939. And he discovered in the meantime as well that he was suffering from a problem called sleep apnea, had to undergo some treatment and management for this to improve his recovery between day-to-days. He reviewed his nutrition plan and went to kind of a very fat-burning, low-carbohydrate diet, which helped him on the road a lot as well, and also had some coaching too, which kind of structured his training a lot more. And this kind of all prepared him when he went back in 2017. He initially broke the highest monthly mileage, cycling 7,106 miles in 30 days, and then proceeded to ride around the year, and which is how he managed to achieve the highest annual mileage for his age group. While he was riding this attempt, he actually had a kind of a competitor in terms of Amanda Coker, who he mentioned, who is an incredible lady who carried out a similar thing in the United States, but riding kind of a much more set route around local parks, which on the face of it might have seemed a lot easier, but Steve mentioned that she has some trials of her own in terms of some of the local wildlife, alligators and things like that, and had, he thinks, a tougher job of it as he did. He was riding set routes, so he had almost kind of 6 different routes every day, and he talked about how he didn't really find that tedious, monotonous, but the variety with the weather and having to plan around the wind direction and things like that every day. And he would be riding for 14 to 15 hours daily, covering about 200 miles a day. And so his structure, his food and his recovery played a massive part in that. He did manage to get sponsorship for the rides, and he was very lucky in terms of that he'd already kind of paid the mortgage on his house to try and cover the costs of doing this all. Day to day now, he gets quite a lot of income through Deliveroo driving, and talked about how he made the most of the Nando's boom in the pandemic, where everybody ordering a Nando's could only get a delivery, so they'd drive to the Nando's car park and get it delivered from Nando's door to their car, and that was a big money maker during lockdown. But it was fascinating to hear how he gets that balance of doing what he loves, riding his bike every day, and making money from it as well. And I also know that he's involved in kind of local cycle food banks too, and helps does deliveries there as well. We did talk a little bit about tandems. He is not an inexperienced tandem rider, and has in fact also rode a triplet, so a bicycle made for 3 around Paris-Brest Paris, with the famous Drew Buck as well. He's completed 6 Paris-Brest Paris rides in this time and remembers them all fondly, and has also been involved in many 24-hour time trial too, often riding these events on fixed wheel, which he's very passionate too. He's not quite sure what he's going to do next, but he's looking at some of the longer Audaxes and getting back into it all and getting back up to fitness, and yeah, doing lots of riding his bike. So as I say, I know that's nowhere near the same as hearing the words from Steve's mouth himself. And I know we've missed out on lots of interesting bits and bobs there, but I really am very grateful to the time that Steve did give us to interview him, and for riding all the way to come and meet us as well. So hopefully you've still enjoyed what was left. This has also been a bit of a wrap up for now as well. It's kind of got to the point in the summer where everybody is out on their bicycles, so it's becoming harder and harder to pin down guests for the podcast because they're all out having too much fun, and we ourselves are having to focus on training as too. We have signed up for All Points North, which is happening in September, which is organised by A Different Gear in Sheffield. So we will be in kind of full training mode, if we are in full training mode. But we will be, focusing on training for that over the upcoming months. And podcasting is going to take a break, I think, until the autumn. And hopefully I'll be able to pin down some more exciting guests for you. If you've been listening, or if you've started listening and are catching up, I really hope you've enjoyed all the guests so far. If you've got any ideas, if there's anything you'd like to hear about, if there's anything you think we can do to kind of improve this and engage you more, please do let me know. Check out, I'm trying to keep all the social medias all up to date with lots of exciting bits and bobs about our progress we're planning for around the world. So do look at those, do like and follow, do share it with your friends, and the same for the podcast too, because the more people we've got following us around the world, the more inspiration we can give, and hopefully the more money we can raise for charity too. So that'd be awesome. So yeah, it's goodbye for me for a few months, and we'll see you on the other side.